Welcome back to It Hurts to Be Pretty podcast. I'm Angel Renee, the host of It Hurts to Be Pretty.
Spill some water. I'm Lexi, the co-host, and we're sitting here with Sarah Knight for the second time.
Second time in 2 years. But you were one of the most listened to. Yes. I mean, people are very intrigued with their finances, especially this day and age. But before we get into finances, because that makes me sweaty and my cheeks get flushed and I hate it. Every time she talks about taxes, I'm like, stop talking dirty to me. I hate it. So last night there was a movie that had just come out with Anne Hathaway called what the shit?
I have no idea.
Okay, wait, let me think.
I've seen the videos of it. Do you know what it's called?
No, she doesn't.
Do you watch TV?
We want to know if she watches TV.
You don't watch shows?
Okay, it's called The Idea
I
of
watch
You.
TV shows when I go to bed on my iPad sometimes. Yeah.
Okay.
On
but
her
no, I'm not.
iPad. She's 12. She wasn't lying. Okay, here's your pop.
She's an iPad.
We'll see you tomorrow at 7, honey.
My iPad is from, it's 13 years old.
So
I know that from when the picture on it is from when my youngest son was 4 and he's now 17.
Oh,
so I can tell you that.
I believe it.
Okay.
So The Idea of You, it's on Prime. And this is the funny part. So I don't know how to work my TV. I just know the on, off, talking to the thing. And then if it's broken, I panic. So I go and I think I have Prime. I don't know. We order a bunch of shit on the, for our office. So I sit down and I'm like, do. I try to find the Prime and I press the button and I'm like, okay. And it flashes up. And then it said the ex-boyfriend's name.
Can you see his watch history? Let's see his watch.
And it has his 3 children, or his 2 children on
And
there.
his wife.
And that's my wife. His fiance. And I go, oh, he never logged out, or I don't know. Because when he would fly in and stay with me for the weekend, so he logged in.
So you didn't know there was a wife and 3 children until now.
Surprise.
What a treat, though. Stay logged in. Use that shit.
So last night I watched it on his name. Thank you. I just said, okay.
So you know how they, Amazon Music, and you guys probably use something cooler, but you know how it makes a playlist for you based on your
on what you watch.
Yeah. Oh, so now his feed, it's going to be based on
He's going to go on there and it's going to say already watched.
Or because you watched.
He's going to be like, are you cheating on me to his wife?
No. Yeah. Lexi said you should go on there and say, watch a bunch of gay porn.
For sure. Just go wild with it.
Order a bunch of gay porn and then
all of it.
But anyway, I just thought it was funny because I didn't even know. First of all, I didn't even know I had that.
I'm glad you remembered his name.
I know. And then I said, oh, okay. Well, and then I'm like, well, I don't know my name and password. By the time I text Lizzie and figure that out. And so I watched the movie about Anne Hathaway. So she's 40 years old, divorced. Her husband cheated on her, blah, blah, blah. She's trying to find her groove back. And she meets a guy and he's 25. Mm-hmm. And the sex scene is just hot and sexy because one, she looks great for her age. And two, the guy doesn't give a shit. He's like, I could care less. He just wants to have sex with her and meet with her. And so we were curious, Sarah.
What it's like to have sex with a 53-year-old?
Give us the detail. No, would you ever date a younger guy, a significantly younger guy?
No.
Where do you have sex with one?
No. Probably not. I don't know if I wouldn't. I'm not attracted to that.
And you're married?
No.
Okay, you're not married.
No. I'm not attracted to it.
Yeah.
I'm just not attracted to young men.
What if they were financially successable, mature?
No.
Okay. The answer.
I don't need the money.
The answer is fucking no.
I don't. Yeah. I don't think I need anything. I don't need anything. Okay. Right. I don't need the. No. I'm just not attracted, and I'm an old soul. So no. But it makes for a great movie.
Yeah.
Oh no, it was a great rom-com. I mean, good movie. But I've also dated younger guys myself. Well, dated or had a frolic with a younger guy, right? And I think it was fun. It was great, but I didn't take them serious. In my mind, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I don't see how it could go past a certain point in my mind because I'm way older.
I guess it depends on how much younger though. But I don't think
20s is young.
I don't think you know who you are until you're probably 40, right? I don't think you're. And if I'm 53, right? So do I have anything in common, or is there enough wisdom in a 25-year-old? No, and I just am not physically attracted to a 25-year-old. I mean, it's just not it.
Yeah, I think it'll surface the immaturity a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So on a first date, would you are you, because you're old school, you said, do you, now that you're dating, does he pay for the tab the first date? Or do you? Like, think back
She's
to when you
thinking
were
about
dating.
this.
Yeah, because she's gone on some dates.
Oh yeah.
And so, like, do you reach for your wallet? Because being a very successful woman, very powerful, I'm sure men are intimidated by that. Do they go like, no, darling? I picture them saying, no, darling.
No, I think I would wait.
Let me go out in my saddle, go get my wallet.
But I'm still, I mean, I'm very
He
old
rides
school.
his horse to the date.
That is a turn
Just
on.
a horse.
That turns on
Now
me.
that he would. But what if he was broke as fuck? But he was like a cowboy.
I have my own money. I don't care about money.
Okay.
You want to see the guy I'm dating now? He's not rich.
Oh.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Okay.
No, I don't.
But you would always keep it separate, right? Like,
I don't know that I keep it. It's not that important to me. I think that today, I mean, I think when I was younger, I always was pretty keen on keeping things separate because I never wanted strings attached to anything. I was always very passionately independent. I think today I expect the guy. Those are the kind of men I'd want to date, whether they have the money or not. I think it's just the chivalry. It's the old school. It's being treated like a lady. I'm a big believer in differences in men and women. I want my door opened. The guy I'm dating now opens my door for me every time, no matter everywhere we go. We were down in Pueblo Reservoir yesterday at the 7-Eleven, right? Runs, I'd never open the door. So I'm just old school that way, and so that I think.
So did you let him pay the first date, or would you?
Yeah, and he still picks up the tab.
Oh, good man.
Yeah, so I don't. Yeah, I think, today's modern world, we're adults, we're in our 50s. It's not a big deal, but who's paying for what? I think our money is to some degree mixed. We keep a big, in the middle of the truck, like I have an old Swedish fish box, and I think we both put a couple grand of $100 bills in that.
Where's this truck at?
Yeah.
Is it parked out there? Because I think I saw it.
Do you keep it in the truck overnight?
Oh yeah. Well, we live in Elbert. I mean, no one's going to steal it.
I don't know.
But yeah, so we have 2 or 3 grand, and so we sort of both funded that, if you will, and we try to use a lot of cash when we're going out, just because I get paid in cash on a lot of things. So, anyways, we try to do that, and that kind of keeps it feeling sort of 50-50. And so we just have this sort of cash pot. So, when I go get my $5 Starbucks, sometimes I pull my $5 out of there, and sometimes I don't. He chews tobacco, so every once in a while I'm like, you can buy a can with the fund. So yeah, no, those things aren't important to me. But I think it's important. I think if he didn't pull out his wallet first,
would it bother you?
yes,
Yeah, it
yes.
would too.
Even if he pulled it out first, and I said, you know what, my turn, let me get it. That would be different. But if he didn't pull out his wallet first, that would bother me. Yeah, that'd probably be the last day. Yeah, and I just like masculine men. Yes, I'm very attracted to real men.
And I've seen a picture. He's very.
Where'd you meet?
He's very masculine.
We met in Vegas.
Fun. Okay, you're the
But-
second person.
But
I've ever recently
I think I've got the best story in the world.
Okay, let's hear
I'm
it.
doing it wrong.
I think I've got the best story.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm in Vegas a couple of years ago at the National Final Rodeo, which is the first week in. So let me back up. About 8 or 9 months before that, I had bought a ranch out in Elbert, Colorado. It was 1,300 acres. Bought it with a partner out there. For those of you that know Elbert, it's sort of east of Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Maybe 45 minutes. We're kind of out in the middle of nowhere. So I bought this ranch, running some cows on it. No houses on it or anything, but there's a camper out there. So I spent a lot of time out there, and I knew all the neighbors. 1,300 is a lot of ground. So we have a lot of neighbors. So I'd met most of the neighbors, but I was out in Vegas at the NFR, and I go every year. And I came out of the bar, and I was in the bathroom, came out of the bar, and my girlfriend was at the table, and she said she was chatting up a couple guys at the table as before we went to the rodeo, and she's like, this guy knows your name. And I said, what do you mean this guy knows, And he's one of my neighbors. So I share a fence line with him. Yep. So I actually met him in Vegas, and he had my name because I think they mentioned, I think my girlfriend said, where are you from? And they sort of talked, and he said Elbert. And she said, well, I don't know anything about Colorado because she's not from here. But my girlfriend, I know the name Elbert. She's got some land out there. And she said, I think she's subdividing some of it. And he said, her name's Sarah Knight.
That's fucking crazy.
I know. It's a great story. I've dated him for over 2 years now.
Okay.
So anyways.
Well, I'm happy for you.
Yeah. So it's good. But he's got a house. I used to be in a camper. So.
I cannot.
He's got a bed and a bathroom.
Wait, you slept in a camper?
Well, my partner out there had a camper out there. So if I stayed out there, I stayed in the camper.
For how many days did you stay in the camper?
I don't know, 2 or 3 days, whatever, when I was out there. Just like a motorhome, so a camper. So this is a much better arrangement.
Yeah, we like this.
Yeah, we like this better.
Fathom that. She's like 2-3 days in a camper.
Oh my God, how do you shower?
Yeah, I don't shower. Yeah.
It is what it is.
Okay, so let's talk about combining finances in a marriage now. What do you recommend first step? Like, you're going to tie the knot, you get engaged. What's a conversation you have about finances?
I would never combine money.
Not a penny.
Well, I was married 17 years, divorced 2 or 3 now. Never once had a joint bank account. It's silly. Not silly. I don't understand it. It had nothing to do with keeping our money separate. Had nothing to do with him not knowing. It's just very impractical. I can tell you what we did. No one would believe this. I'm sure my ex-husband would laugh at it and tell you he did it. But what I did with his paycheck is I had 75% or whatever of his paycheck go into my account, and the other, I forget what the split was. It was something like that, 75-25. So 75% of his pay went into my account and 25% went into his account.
Love it.
And then I took care of everything.
Oh,
and
like all the bills.
I made everything. So that 25%, he made good money, whatever. It added up, and so he would have 10 or 15 or 20 grand. Or he could buy his bike, whatever. He always had plenty of spending money, and he always put everything on the Visa that I paid.
She gave her husband an allowance. This is so funny. She's all, okay,
25%.
I'm going to go to bed at 7 with my iPad. I would better see you. You don't spend your 20% or else I'm going to kick your ass.
I didn't think about it as an allowance.
I'm just
kidding. But he did. We used the same Visa, right? And so all of the spending went on that Visa, and I just paid that bill. So groceries. So I didn't think about it as an allowance. I just thought it more of a slush fund that he could do whatever he wanted with, or I didn't ask questions. And then every once in a while, it would be a quarterly tax payment, or I'd be like, what do you have?
Like
I need
$0.
I need 10. Can I have 10? No, it worked. But like I said, it wasn't a control issue. It just worked really well because I think a joint account, no one knows what we're spending. I think joint accounts work really well for household expenses, for like second marriages, or people are really trying to, I don't know, it can work and it can help people budget. So if you have a roommate situation or a new marriage and you just want to budget and you're not, you figure out the house payment, the apartment payment, whatever, the rent, the utilities.
You put it in there.
You each put your $2,500 in that a month, right? And that's $5,000. That's going to cover your insurance, whatever it might cover. It could be your vacation slush fund. I mean, a lot of people use it more as a savings vehicle, right? Sort of a control, and then everything else you can spend. Then gosh, I've saved for this. So, but I don't know that it just makes sense. Like, how would you know? If we had a joint account, how would I know that you didn't just go spend $800 at Nordstrom Rack and you've drained our account, and then I'm going and spending $800 on concert tickets, right? I'd be bouncing checks and.
You don't know what the other person's doing. And people don't communicate like that either. Right. I mean, I grew up where you had to have a joint account. Like everything was. I was old. My grandparents were like, your husband's a breadwinner. You have to kind of submit under that, and he knows where all the money is. And so when I knew of the other way, and especially now, I would never share a bank account with anyone.
There is a video, this reminds me, on TikTok. It went viral, and it basically was a situation. So it was a girl moving in with her boyfriend. The boyfriend, let's say, made $100,000 a year. She made $50,000 a year. Should they be splitting the rent evenly?
We have that same question in business partnerships, right? We're both doctors, whatever. You do surgery and make $1 million a year. I see patients in the office and make $500,000 a year. That's a really good question. I don't know the right answer to that. I can tell you there are probably some things that should be split 50-50. And there are probably some things that could be split 75-25, and that's it, or whatever the breakdown was. It seems to me it would be... That's an odd question. I mean,
it's interesting.
It's an interesting question, but that's more of a roommate business. I think when you're married, everything's 50-50.
Right. This is not married yet.
Yeah. Oh, they're not married yet.
I'll tell you what I do.
Are you in that situation?
Yes, I have a very good discount on my rent. So he pay. Well, it's our house. It's a mortgage. So he pays most of it, and I pay him about 40% of that each month.
Yeah, that's fair. Right. So, yeah, that's fair. I mean,
it's each their own. But
yeah, that's a good question though, and I think that. But to me, like that's a question we get all the time, particularly in professional services when you have partners, because there are a lot of expenses, right? Mm-hmm. Then again, a marriage or a boyfriend-girlfriend situation is a little different because you don't think of it that way. But yeah, do we split the rent? What about the receptionist up front? What about the insurance? What about, all these things? And it doesn't feel right when I'm working 3 days a week, when you're working 5 days a week, split it 50-50. You're like, this just doesn't feel right, you know?
Yeah.
Or vice versa. But anyways, yes, I think that seems to me that the person making more money, or they pay for all the vacations, right? Maybe you
got to make it fair somehow.
Yeah, somehow you just can't afford it, right? Mm-hmm. If you're making 50 and he's making 100, you guys can't live the same lifestyle.
Right. And make up for their other ways, like I'll clean the house, I'll cook dinners a lot.
25.
So she gives some BJs.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's 25.
You ask him, not enough. But
they're worth thousands.
That should buy you more than a 10%
a bonus. I better see some money coming in.
Unlike that's all you get is a 10% discount.
I know.
I should be pleased.
I know that's true.
Yeah, you got to work on your skills.
That's how I got my pots and pans yesterday. Bought me a new pots and pan set. I promised him BJ.
There you go.
He didn't end up getting it.
But you got your pots and pans. The promise goes.
Check next week.
Yeah. But I think what happens with a girlfriend is you're planning for the end. So that when, just like if you're dating, if we each pick up our half the check and it doesn't work out,
no hard feelings.
No, yeah. You didn't spend a fortune on me on lavish hotel, whatever. Most people don't care. That would bother me. But yeah, so if it doesn't work out, he didn't pay 100% of the rent.
I got a good deal.
He
has his house.
He got a good deal.
Yeah,
he got a blowjob.
Do you remember when someone went viral of the girl who broke up with the guy? They were dating for several months, and he ended up trying to sue her and had an itemized statement of all the money he spent on her and wanted his money back.
This fucker, are you kidding me? He's going to be single forever.
Okay, so do you when you do taxes, do you file separate or joint? What's more beneficial in the I guess it's situational, but.
Well, it's almost always better to file married filing joint. The only time you would file married filing separate, like our software will actually do that analysis for you. So I actually can come up with a pretty good number. It's not perfect, but it's a pretty good number. The rules are different. The code encourages joint, like a lot of things. It's always sort of designed to mold social behavior, I always said. So they encourage married filing joint, but I'm in a situation right now where we're doing married filing separate, even though it's going to cost them thousands of dollars to do it. So you do married filing separate because when you file a joint return, right, you have joint liability. And so unless you know what your husband's doing or your boyfriend, whatever, whoever you're filing a joint return, if you don't know, you don't want to be on the hook because right, so you live in a very nice house in Observatory Park, you make $50,000 a year, you're not really sure how you drive the Tesla, how you live in a $3 million house. You don't care, you don't ask, you don't and a lot of, I'd say mostly women, never see a tax return, right? They're just signing the signature page, they don't even know, they don't ask. If you don't know or don't think you could be a drug dealer, right? And you have this huge tax liability and you're jointly liable for that.
So there liability thing.
Oh gosh, yeah. So that's all it is a liability. There are these rules called innocent spouse rules, and I haven't looked at them in years. They were very hard to qualify because there was always this argument when I didn't know, and then the IRS would say, well, you should have known. You were living in this house, driving a whatever. You should have known. Maybe you should have asked.
Yeah.
Maybe you should have looked.
But my Gucci purse was so beautiful.
They're turning a blind eye. They know what's going on. If they're not.
My Lamborghini, I thought he was getting me that half of $50,000 a year. I don't know what happened.
But I have a client whose husband died a couple weeks ago and hasn't filed tax returns since 2018, and we're doing all married filing separate. It'll cost her some money, but her husband was in dire financial straits the last few years. No one really knew. He hadn't filed returns. He's self-employed. So she's got a W-2 job, right? A regular job. So she had some tax withholdings. She should be pretty covered if maybe owe a little bit. He hasn't paid anything, right? So we're just going to, and he's gone. So I'm going to do married filing separate. There's no light. And if they ever want to audit him, and God love him,
they can find him.
What
can find him. Go find it.
What happens if you die and you're,
I dare you, go get him.
You owe so much money.
Well, if it's a joint return, they'll go after the surviving spouse if you filed a joint return. And there's ways to settle those if you have no money. There's but if you have the means, if you have cash,
They'll
yeah,
get it from you.
yeah, they'll
Is it
get
still a thing where if you're with together, like, so Lexi's been with her guy for 6 years together. They're not married.
Common law.
We're
Common
domestic
law.
partners.
How is it still the 10 years or is it less?
I don't even know what
10 years of dating someone? and
Like,
you
no,
can file
living
together?
like, you can't have common law if I've lived with you for 2 years is what I'm saying. Is there
you can. I think I I haven't been in that world. I just
What
haven't.
does common law mean?
Common law is like it's like you're married, but you're not legally married. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
but the rules of a marriage would apply.
Okay.
You can file a
would
joint
get-
tax return.
you get half of his shit.
Oh, so we need to file our taxes together this year. I always say I'm going to murder him on his life insurance.
I can't. I can't remember. I just can't remember because I just haven't practiced for like 10 years. But there is no bright line like 10 years.
I didn't know. I thought it was
There
10
is no
years.
there's some states that have like California's a community property state. There's some states that have different rules. I can't even remember what Colorado's would be, but I have filed plenty of joint returns from unmarried couples.
Okay.
Now the other, if you think about you can do that. Think about today's world too, where you have a lot of couples that can't get married, right? They're
Why?
I don't know, like no, they don't like they don't want gay
to?
marriage. No, like there's some states don't have gay marriage.
Oh, sure.
I don't know.
Like they legally can't.
Yeah,
Like religion, they can hide it. I don't know.
Okay. This is a funny story.
but you got to be
Before-
careful with that common law. So I'm just going back to that.
I'm not living with my Nipsey is entitled to all of my assets. If I die, my dog gets
I miss the
everything.
furniture though, you promise.
I think it's a facts and circumstances, and I have been involved in 2 litigation cases over the years where someone has gone after somebody for basically claiming common law, right? When they split up, wanting half the furniture, wanting half the proceeds from the house, right? Whether you're married or not, claiming it, and it's a facts and circumstances. And both cases I worked on, the person won. So you got to be really careful. I don't think
Probably
it's
Tina. She's like, bitch, I'm getting all this motherfucker.
That's right.
She was hurt.
I'm
Okay,
sure.
wait, real quick for your funny story. I just want to settle one question. When you get married, does your partner, like, do your credit scores combine or your credit score is your credit score?
Yeah.
Perfect.
You're not.
Justin's
by the
bunch of
way,
bullshit.
I'm 200. Now I'm someone who has a 300 credit score. They're like, well, you have 7. So basically,
I just said a lot about what my credit score probably is. I said too much. It's not terrible, guys. It's not terrible. But it's not an and.
Don't marry for a credit score.
No.
That's not going to help you.
So funny story. Your funny story.
my funny story is Sarah saved me because I used to have a credit score of 420. Okay, listen.
How long ago was that? How long did it take?
It was about 4 years ago.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It wasn't too
4
long
years.
ago.
I was going to say
rebuilding.
3 or 4 even, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, it was.
We got Angel her first credit card about 3 months ago.
No.
Okay. I was 4.
My very first credit card was, and I owned my business with employees, was a credit limit of 300.
Wow.
I swear. Okay, anyway. So back to the funny story. So I'm sitting down before I met Sarah, and she saved me from all my tax, thank God, drama. There is an old man. She knew of him. And this was when I just started Angel Aesthetics. So I sat down, and he's across, and he's kind of looking at the papers, and he looked up at me. And I want you guys to keep in mind, I knew nothing about business when I first started. I knew nothing. Like, I didn't know I didn't know what to do. I didn't know the difference between different, like, LLC and all this other stuff. So he's sitting there. He looks up. Old man. He has his glasses, and he looks up, and he goes, "Are you an S corp?" And I go, "I can't believe he just asked me if I'm an S corp." I was all, "Am I an S corp? Like, if I'm an S corp, I would make way more money than that because you are."
I've never heard that story.
Yes, and I was like, "Oh my God!" And I was too embarrassed to say, "I don't know what that is," so I just stayed quiet. And I go, "What?" And he went on and said, "Well, LLC, and you're gonna file as this and that." And I was like, "Oh, okay, maybe it's an S." And like when I left, I had to Google what an S corp. Yeah. So with that being said, when he said, "Are you an S corp?" I'm like, I'm so offended. It is because I'm Latina, you fucking asshole.
I'd be like, is it because I'm hot?
I would make way more money than that. So when someone's starting a business, with that being said, how does someone know to pick an LLC versus an S corp, and does that make a difference in taxes?
A huge difference in taxes. Excuse me. Huge difference in taxes. It's a facts and circumstances. I think you've got to, like all things today, it's like going on to WebMD, and diagnosing yourself, right? Everybody reads and they think they know exactly what they're going to do.
Yeah.
I see a lot of S corps. S corps are great. They're very efficient. They make a whole lot of sense. There can be some real tax savings, but only when you get to a certain level. So my rule of thumb is everybody should start out as an LLC, which has a lot of. It can be a partnership. It can be a lot of things. We can make a tax election to tax it differently at any point in time. So I call it upstream, downstream. You can go from being self-employed to an LLC to an S corp to a C corp. As the formality goes up, you can't come back down without taxation. We can always go upstream as far as formality. No tax consequences. Very easy to do. But LLCs are much more flexible. If you're losing money, you can deduct those losses. So a lot of businesses. You might think you're profitable, but for tax purposes, you're losing money because we've done a bunch of build out. We just spent $50,000 building out some of your new treatment rooms, and we can deduct all that, right? So that creates a tax loss. In an LLC, it's much easier to deduct that against your wages, for example, right? So you might have had $75,000 in wages, and now I have a $50,000 loss from building out my space, and I get a nice big fat refund. And that actually happened with you this year. Is you went out and bought a new laser or 7 at the end of the year. Went a little crazy. I gave her permission for 1 and I found like 3 in December. But that's exactly what happened with you is, you were successful, but we would not spend a bunch of money and you get this tax loss. So as an S corporation, there's all sorts of different rules to deduct that loss. And you more likely than not will not be able to deduct that loss this year. So if Angel was an S corp, and the way we would have financed that, if we financed that, you would have spent that money and not been able to deduct it this year. And so you wouldn't have gotten that big tax refund that helped pay for a lot of those lasers that you got. So I always say, always start out as an LLC. And the only difference would be is the Social Security, Medicare tax, or your self-employment tax. There can be a little bit more self-employment tax, but you have a lot more flexibility. And when you start making $200,000-$300,000, then we can make it a selection. There's just a lot more cost. And if you're a single member LLC, if you're just you own your LLC by itself, you don't even have a separate tax return. So you have the tax prep savings, you have payroll savings, you have all sorts of things. So you have to, it's a facts and circumstances, but I tell everybody, and you don't even need an LLC. I mean, if you need, people do LLCs because they think they need to have them. I mean, I operate as Sarah Knight with my Social Security number for a variety of reasons. And I have
luscious. See.
Yes. Angel and I were doing something the other day, and I had to form an entity, and I sent it. It's going to be Luscious Properties.
I love that. So luscious, the two of you.
But I don't operate as an LLC, so if that tells you anything, and I do a lot of things, a lot of money. But
wait, what do you operate as?
Sarah Knight. I just use my Social Security number, and I did that for a lot of reasons. I had a lot of non-competes and things for a long time. I didn't want a formal entity, but people do LLCs because they think they want to. And I always tell, if you're just doing it yourself, if it's just LEXI, you can just be LEXI and use your Social Security. The only reason to do an LLC, if you're just you and you're just providing services, is you want a business name, right? And or you want some liability protection from what you're doing. And I'll just say that you're not going to get that liability protection just by forming an LLC, but you're still commingling all your money, and you haven't formally sort of set up a separate bank account and treated it as an LLC, and that's what a lot of people do, right? They're LEXI, or whatever, Botox injector, right? So you go form LEXI LLC, and you think you're going to be protected. There's some level of protection from you injecting me wrong. But if you've commingled all, unless you've opened up an LLC bank account and done all the right things and treated it as a separate entity, it's not going to protect you. That's why you had malpractice insurance. So we do it all for the wrong reasons. But I don't have an LLC, but I form a whole lot of them for people because they want. A lot of times, people want the name. Yeah. They want Knight Advisors LLC. They want when they go get a consulting contract. They don't want to put their name down.
So.
But when you're as important as me, you don't need you just...
She said my name.
You're freaking Sarah Knight.
When you're Sarah Knight, who needs a name? I mean...
Luscious LLCs.
Are people still doing, we had lunch, we had drinks, and we talked about the business slightly. So this is all a tax write-off. Because I think differently now about that. I think I had a small mind mentality when I first started. And I used to think that way of like, oh, tax write-off. This gum you're chewing, tax write-off, you know? What's your take on that?
Well, it's not my take, it's the rules. Rarely. I mean, we all do it. We all run our, yes, meals and entertainment are still deductible. The rules are much more complex today, so you can't go to Rockies games and deduct those. There's all sorts of weird things now. One of my very best friends, I was doing her taxes. She's a real estate agent, and she wrote down $15,000, and she wrote down M&K, something M&A Cruise. And I thought it was like a firm she must have hired, a marketing firm, because she said marketing expenses. No, it was her. It was a fucking $15,000 cruise she took her family on. But I thought about real estate. Yeah, we talked about it. My husband and I talked about my
place at the bar. Yeah,
her husband. It's not even with the employees.
I screamed out the name and we're having sex.
So if you look at nobody does this. There's no IRS agent in the backseat of your car to know. We all abuse that. You only get to deduct 50% of it anyway, so it's stupid.
Mm-hmm. But yeah,
but you need to be with somebody.
Refunded at the end of the year, 50. So
okay, 50% of your meal.
No. Okay. So if you spend $100, I spend $10,000 a year on meals and entertainment, right? I pick up coffees, whatever. I get to deduct $5,000 of that. So that might save me $1,000 of tax or $1,500 of tax, right? Because I can't deduct the whole,
right?
Like the whole $10,000. I can only deduct half, and then I get the tax savings on that. So depending on the tax bracket you're in, so for some people it's stupid, right? It's like I saved $300. They feel like they're a win, right?
It's such a buzzword. You just want to say it's a tax write-off.
It feels good, right? It feels good. But my rule of thumb has always been: so you're technically supposed to be with somebody. You're supposed to write in the back. I was with LEXI. We talked about business expansion, whatever. You're supposed to have it's a business purpose. My rule of thumb has always been, and hopefully no one's listening that cares. I always had 2 visas, right? I pulled this one out when I was with, every third meal, whether it was my kids or my husband so I made it looked like if I was ever audited that I made a conscious decision, and I usually did, but I made a conscious effort what card I was pulling out. This was the card I used for Chipotle and my kids and coffees, and this is the card that I used, when I would A, B, C. Now, can they prove that anybody was there? No.
You have to be smart about it.
Yeah, just be smart about it, right? I'll tell you, like Angel, and I don't, she doesn't even know what we do, but Angel was really good at, every coffee she got every morning was going through his meals and entertainment. We stopped that.
Coffee.
But yeah, getting coffee for yourself is, just because it's on the way to work, it's.
Yeah. But it's like on the way to work.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about work. It's the same thing as like commuting. You can't deduct your mileage from your first, from your home to your first place of work, even if you're driving to Fort Collins. If you choose to live in Denver and it's kind of your choice. Now, once you're at work and you got to go to clients, that's different. But if you choose to, but you hear that too. But the meals and entertainment, don't leave it. Don't not do it. But it's not that big of a bang for your buck. So
you had a good question about millennials and like what people are doing now about the savings account, and that people are going honest with what's in their bank account, which I think is absurd. But
yeah, so on TikTok, millennials are posting videos.
If TikTok goes away, Lexi will.
I'm not going to know anything about anything.
She won't know what's going on in this world at all. She doesn't know. What? Sarah doesn't know what
I have to turn on my TikTok to watch videos.
I can't read the news. It's too depressing.
I agree.
But people are being transparent about how much money they have in their checking accounts. And so the comments will pop off. So some people are like very little, but here's why: I put most of it into my compounding interest savings account, or yada, yada, yada. Yeah. So people are being transparent. They're commenting, I only have $30 at all times. So what would you say is the best way to approach your checking account versus a savings account? And what type of savings account do we get?
Well, I mean, earning interest on money is a concept that none of you kids probably have ever heard of.
I know now. I have my account now.
But when I was a young kid, right, you had CDs. You go put your $10,000 and you would earn 3 or 4% at the savings and loan account. But it's a very different. But in modern history, in the last 20, 30 years, money's been free. And so no one's ever earned anything on there. Today, you can go put it in a CD. You can go put it in a Charles Schwab money market.
What's a CD?
Certificate of a deposit. it's a savings account, but what you do is you're locking your money up for 6 months or a year or something, and so they pay you a little bit higher rate. They usually pay, instead of, I'm making this up, instead of paying 5%, they'll pay you 5.5%, but you got to lock up that $10,000 for a year.
Okay.
You can get it out, but there's a penalty to do that. Very few people do that. I have a couple people that did that last year. It's the first time I've seen CDs, and I was like,
I need that. I'm gonna lock on my cookie jar at home.
Money back.
It's just a funny CDs are real. It's like a grandma concept,
Okay.
but they do pay a little better, but you can go put that money in Schwab, which is like a lot of what we do with Angel's excess cash in between lasers and stuff when we're saving. Is I've just got her in a bunch of the Schwab money markets. Those are, depending on how much you can put in. If you can put $1 million, they pay a little bit more. But if they're paying 4 or 5%, right? So that's interest. Savings is whatever you can afford to save, right? And so for most people, it's zero. Because you're acquiring. I mean, that's when you're young.
And also this economy.
Oh, it's
really hard
it's
and
horrible. Tight. It's like a 3 in the stink right now.
You're not lying though. I feel like I'm getting fingers up my ass at all times.
Yes,
Get your paycheck, and we were talking about.
I mean, we're in the
commission.
worst fucking economy. There is nothing
commission,
good.
because
Commission gets taxed like what?
half.
No, yeah, but that's not that's
Different. But I'm pissed.
No, it's the economy is so bad, and people are so uneducated. It's just maddening for me to listen to a bunch of fucking idiots talk about it sometimes. And if you're not aware, you're choosing not to be aware. You should be listening to a variety of sources. And just the world's a really bad place, particularly the economics. Yes, it's ridiculously expensive. The thought of saving money when I was in my 20s or 30s, I think we talked about last time. I had a number of rules, and I always said if I did these things, that was a forced savings account. It wasn't the savings account you're thinking about, where you could actually see it sitting in an account. But I maxed out IRAs. I maxed out my retirement accounts. I had 15-year mortgages, so my mortgage payments were bigger. I did a lot of things like that sucked cash away. It wasn't piling up cash, but I was building equity in things. Mm-hmm. So when I did sell my house, instead of owing 180, I owed 130. Mm-hmm. So I had this much more cash when I came out of that first house I sold, right? I think the concept of saving today is a really difficult one, right? And everybody's different. Everybody's threshold. Like, I was born an accountant, so my need to have money in the bank is a little higher than yours. You can probably, but there was, my 20s and 30s. I mean, I lived in a line of credit. I might have 50,000 in an account, then I owed 150, and then I went back and forth. So, have you that rules of 7, and you just Google it? I'm sure everybody's heard that, right? And
you talked about? No, you talked about your personal.
I did my 7 rules, but there's like the rules of 7. I forget what it's called, but it's like if you put $100 in, and for 7 years it'll double at a certain I think it's 7%. I can't remember the exact rule, but if you just Google it, it's been out there for 100 years.
We'll find it and link it.
It's been out there forever. I think it's if you put money in at 7% for 7 years, your $100 will be $200 in 7 years, right?
Put into what? What?
Anything that earns 7%.
Okay.
So the stock market, right? You put something, and you're not going to find something that pays you exactly 7%. So this is never going to work, and it works well in a vacuum. But the point being is that if you put $100 a month into a savings account from the time you're 20, by the time you get to be 50, and this is how I think, and this is exactly what happened to me, but in a very different way. I just did it a different method. Is you wake up and you're 30, and I'm like, God, I've been doing this since I was 20, and boy, I have $250,000 of equity in a house, which was way more than anybody else had, and that was a long time ago, right? I had a lot of So I think incremental savings is super important. I think you can have, like, was it Susie Orman, or who's that old lady that she's like money? She's on TV. She's written books. She's on cable. I think it's Susie Orman or something like that. But she has like those little rules. She's got her own little rules. But I think savings is something that I don't think of it in big chunks. Today I do. Today I make bigger chunks of money, right? Because deals. I'm more of a deal person, but I think if you think about savings, or you think about money, it's incremental and in slow doses, right? So if I was to do anything, my savings would be to fund an IRA, deductible or not. If I was your age, like, I think we talked about my kids. My kids have nice big Roth IRAs. I'd be funding a Roth IRA. Mm-hmm. I'd be putting $150, whatever you can afford, $100, have it go from your paycheck.
Yeah, because you were saying you did that for your kids.
Yeah.
But they can't touch it until they're older.
Well, they can't. They don't even know
Until
they
they
have
come
it.
to Auntie Angel again.
It's gonna be a
This
fun
is a
surprise.
shameless plug. Auntie Angel's here. When Mommy's gone, we're gonna go find it.
I'm not kidding. You technically have to have
Find that
earnings.
truck with all the money.
Oh, I want the Swedish fish box.
It is. It's an old Swedish fish box. It's worked out awesome. It was a great plan. But my kids are 17 and 19 now. And you technically they have to have earned income, right? So your kids have to make money. If they want to put $1,000 in an IRA, they have to have made $1,000. But no one can prove what they're making. My kids always made a lot of money because I always paid them a lot. But I've been putting that away for them. I've been putting the max, whether it's $5,000 or $6,000 a year or $3,000 whenever they started. And now they have quite a bit of money. And they don't know about it, but they technically can't touch it till they're 59 and a half. Actually, it's a Roth. They can take it out before then.
59 and a half?
That's a regular IRA. They can actually take it out
What's with
before
the half? That's such a random age.
And I think they just raised it to 70.
Like, what?
I know. Right? I know.
Government is so weird.
A lot of the tax code is like that. 70 and a half, you have to start taking it.
On your half birthday, you can withdraw it.
And they don't know that we stopped celebrating half birthdays when you turn like 40. You no longer want to. Up till then, I celebrated my half birthday.
We don't do halves. There's no halves.
Okay, so
but think about the best advice I can give for young people. Think about it incrementally, and if you don't want to do some of the things like that, I think I would do. Put $100 away a month. Like, don't think about having to put $1,000 because it will. Time goes by so fast, and all of a sudden, that'll add up, and all of a sudden you'll have 10 grand, and then that 10 grand you can use to buy a condo, down payment on a condo, and then that condo you're going to build equity, and you're going to sell that in 5 years, and you're going to make 40,000, right? And that's how you do it. But I think that there's always that. How do I save $1,000 a month? You don't need to do that.
So how much should you have in the bank for a down payment on a home, a small starter home? What would you say is like a rough?
I think you have to. I mean, what is it, like 15%, 20%? 20% these days.
20% of whatever the amount is.
I think there's still some homes out there, FHA, where you can do. No, it's not first time. It's FHA loans. I think you can get to 10%.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't play in that field very often, but 20%. Think of it. But when you say like starter home, I mean, those days are gone.
There's no such thing.
Not in Colorado. Not in Denver.
In Colorado, it's like $700,000 for a starter.
Yeah.
For a piece of crap.
Or like if you go to the burbs, right? Even if you go to Castle Rock or Aurora or Elizabeth or some of these outliers, and I think you're still looking at $400,000 or $500,000 for. So you're looking at 80 grand, right? You're looking. But I think the only way you make, not the only way, but for most people, the only way you make a big chunk of money is to buy a piece of real estate. It's the only way. It's the only way to make 30 grand. Making $40,000 a year or $60,000 a year, $80,000 a year, and trying to pay for daycare and car payments and vacations and all the things, you're just not going to be able to save 30 grand or 40 grand. I mean, you might be able to if you make enough money. If you're disciplined and you make enough money and you're in a job that pays well, yes. But for me, I think real estate, and it doesn't have to be, you don't have to have a home run. But Angel, I mean, we don't talk about numbers, but Angel can talk about, the first piece of real estate she owned was she bought a house in Albuquerque 2 years ago.
2 years.
And I don't want to say it's a piece of shit.
It ain't great.
But it's
Hey, she renovated it a little bit.
I mean,
I put money into it. It was definitely
She
a piece
redid
of
the
shit.
floors and
I redid. I put like 10 grand.
I'm not
into it.
passing judgment. I'm just saying.
you lived in a
I would be conscientious.
You're in a trailer. In the middle of nowhere.
in your trailer. Okay, showering.
Okay, so this first of all, I'm just saying I haven't seen the inside of it, but I saw the outside of it when you listed it. My point is that it was a rectangle. It's a box, right? It's not a 2-story. It doesn't have. It's a box. It's in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and
I paid $180, and now I owe $134.
Okay, but that's because we've been paying extra on it, and then tell us what you just listed it for. And this was it 2 years?
2 years. At 280.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm talking about. And that's in an environment, and who knows if it'll sell at 280? Maybe she sells it at 240. Who knows?
Still.
But I'm just saying, even in the shittiest real estate environment because of interest rates, right? Look at I would have never guessed that in Albuquerque, New Mexico, on a box, a little wood box. How many?
Shout out to 505. She's all the piece of shit Albuquerque.
I wouldn't be caught dead there.
I hope someone still wants to buy my house because it's actually really nice.
No. My point, it wasn't some elaborate thing that was in a really nice neighborhood that was going to appreciate. It was a very entry level Albuquerque, New Mexico, like a not a Denver market, right? A very maybe Albuquerque is a booming market. I don't know. I could be totally my point. It's not. It wasn't. But I would have never guessed that she could make that much money off that house in 2 years. Particularly given the interest rates that we're now dealing with that have pushed values way down. So whether she makes $50,000 or $60,000, that is the first $50,000 or $60,000 that Angel's ever made in a piece of real estate. It's the first piece of real estate she's ever owned. And that's not everybody's. I mean, it might have been $10,000. It's not everybody's story. But now Angel has 50 or 40, and that's tax free if you live in it 2 years, right? You get the first $250,000 tax free per person. So if you were married, you have $500,000. So there's no way she could have saved that money, right, with her job. So that's her first chunk of money that she now goes and buys the $300,000 house or the $400,000 house, right? Now she's moved up, and then.
Well, I want to say to that because. Had I not, and you guys, I've been open about like Sarah being my mentor. So because she was so strict on me not spending, like, I think me and Lizzie were talking about this the other day. It was like in 2020 before the world shut down. And I said, I want to buy my friend's car. It's a Range Rover. And she goes, what? Why? Who do you think you are? You're nobody. You think you want to buy that? And why, blah, blah. And she like ripped me. I was sitting there and I was like, I'm nobody. You're right. I'm nobody. I ain't shit. And truly, like just giving it to me straight, whether I wanted to hear it or not. Because sometimes just being human, you see the flashy things and the nice things and the cute purses and you're like, oh, well, maybe I could get that and that would be so cool. And it just always kept me. One, I've always known what it's like to struggle. So to struggle and not have money was not oh my God, what am I going to do? It was like, I'll live. I'll eat ramen noodles. I'll be fine. But I knew that if I wanted to go to the next level, I couldn't just go buy the car that I wanted. And even though she thinks it's silly, of course, one day I want a G-Wagon. And maybe I'll never get that. But I think it's cool to just say I have the self-control because I could have just been like, thanks for your advice. I appreciate it, but I'm still going to get one because I think it's so cool. And look at me, I'm flossing, whatever. And I didn't. I think, yes, getting the house, the piece of shit house was an investment, but it also took me saving that money to put the money down to buy the piece of shit house that I knew that I would have to, sacrifice. So going back to your age group, it's like not a lot of people want to be sacrificial. We live in a day and age where Instagram, everyone's flossing their new cars, their new purses, their new this, and look at them on vacation here and there. And it's hard, I think, for your age group, my age group too. Like, these women flashing their diamonds and their diamond necklaces and their Hermes bags. And I'm like, yeah, like for me, I just have to keep my head down. And I also know that shit never really made me or never was appealing. It was tempting at a time. But I think you have to have those people in your life that are like, who do you think you are? And when Sarah was like, hello, you're broke, bitch, remember? Like, you can't afford to get that. And I was like, but it's used. It's just like,
it's confusing because I look at my age category and I'm not broke as fuck, but I could never just go out and buy a Louis bag. So I'm like, are they just accumulating so much credit card debt?
Yes.
Do they have a sugar daddy?
Yes.
Is it inheritance? I'm like, how? And even I love that you support our business, but some girls my age are coming in and getting 20 syringes of filler. And I'm like, I love that for you. But how can you afford to spend $3,000 every few weeks? Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I
think, you have to have you're an old soul. I'm an old soul. It takes discipline and I think the long game, right? You kind of where you want to be. Doesn't mean you can't have fillers and,
yes,
I do.
Of course.
I don't do the fillers, but I do, I would love to do plenty of that stuff too, right? But it's the long game. It's the long game. I don't know how they all afford it either. It blows my mind, it blows my mind when I see homeless people with tattoos all over their bodies. I sit there and think, how did they afford all those tattoos?
Or they got it before.
That's what I don't know. But that's the first thing that crosses my mind. That shit costs money.
First thing that crosses my mind, she's on this person.
I do. I do. I sit there. I'm like, how did you get all? Because I just think about what those tattoos must have cost. And
You sound like my mom.
but it's true. It's kind of true. I know, but it takes a lot of self-confidence also, right? It takes a lot of self-confidence to drive a Volkswagen and not give a shit.
You got to drop the ego.
Oh, I've had people.
Yes.
I dated a guy, the guy that I was using his account, and I remember him saying, why don't you buy a better car? Like,
Ew.
people would look at you different. It's like your image. You know, a lot of people follow you on social. You should get a better car. I think it'll appeal more to people because people like
He
what
said
they
this?
Yes.
Oh my God.
And then I was thinking, you live in an apartment, you drive a piece of shit car, like you don't even
gross.
pay child support. So
but he has a nice car to show everyone how rich he is.
yeah. So I just think when I heard him say that, I'm like, wow, he knows nothing.
I can't. I won't mention names, but his dad ran for governor in the state. He's been an old client of mine, and he's one of my favorite human beings. More money than any family here in Colorado, and he drove a convertible. And he's a big guy. He drove a convertible Rabbit for
those little tiny cars that like
so probably.
it's like a little.
So we're in our 50s. He's older than I am. He's probably 57, and he probably drove it till he was 45, and he did it because he liked just pulling up in it, right? And he had the last name, he had the money, but there's something about just it was a red convertible Rabbit.
Okay, so we were gonna ask for this. The worst purchase you've ever made with a big substantial amount of money where you were like, damn it, I can't believe I bought that. And it can't be a car. It can't be a car. We said no cars because we knew how you feel about cars. So something that you bought that you were like, oh, I bought this is, it could be anything. Where you had regret.
Well, that's a hard question.
Like a fun item, something where you splurge.
Well, I could tell you the things that I don't, things like what you guys would sell. Like face stuff, like where I would get like
creams because you're not
creams and
cream. By the way, you should get that shit for free.
Yeah, but like those are the things that I have spent money on, and not a lot because I just go to my mammogram. I just go to my mammogram and colonoscopy, and I'm 4 years late on both.
That's the shittiest thing to spend money on.
I know.
Expenses.
No, but I'm just not a big spender, so I don't.
So it wasn't a TV,
bag.
A bag.
No, I have never owned anything. This is, this came from the NFR. Like, this is the most expensive thing I ever bought. It was like $200.
You go to the ranch or like with your little conventions where all the cowboys are, and you buy the belts and the hats.
Yeah, but that's like $200.
She doesn't regret it.
But it's like $200, and I'll have that. Like, I have the same thing for 15 years. I'm not a name brand person. In fact, I don't like the looks of any of that stuff, like the Louis bags. I don't even like that stuff. It doesn't even appeal to me. So I can't imagine. So I have never spent that kind of money on. It just. So I don't have those kind of regrets, but I have most of my girlfriends that will spend $2,200 on a bag. Or now we're all older; they can all afford to do it. God love them,
Yeah.
I spend it on cowboys, but even when
on cowboys,
I want to spend it on cowboys. Cowboy escort.
But I'm not I don't. I go on hotels.com. I don't stay in fancy places. I'm just not I'm not a fancy person. So I think that those are the kind of things
I'm a hotel snob.
Wait, question. Okay, so back to the buying a house thing. Last thing. So let's say someone wanted to buy their first property, not in Colorado because it was unaffordable. Mm-hmm. They bought it somewhere else and there's no one living there. Do you recommend Airbnb-ing it out? Because that's a big thing right now too. Mm-hmm. Or do you recommend having tenants that are paying the mortgage for you essentially every month?
Yeah, that's a property management question. I think.
Different.
I think if you no. I mean, it's a good question. I mean, there's a lot of that's what's happened to like a lot. I think that's what my opinion. Like even the mountain housing, right? We're used to have these. I don't remember the statistic, but like 60% of the houses that sit up in the mountains are vacant all the time, right? So you used to have. We had a lot more workforce housing, even if they were like small condos. People would rent. They would rent them to locals or whatever when they weren't using them. Today they're all in Airbnbs, right? Or VRBOs, and now those local people don't have a place to live. Airbnbs take a lot of management. To me, they take a lot of you got to have a cleaning company or management company or somebody doing the work for you, right? If it's not local. So if you can't find that, if you don't have that resource, if you had a house in Larkspur or Monument or some rural, like you wouldn't have that person to that. I don't know. I think you can make more money as Airbnb. I think you take the risk of people destroying your house. When I have a neighbor, he's my irrigation guy. He's one of my favorite guys, lives around the corner from me in a little tiny house. Did that, and they cooked meth, So he ended up moving out and getting an insurance settlement. But, these people Airbnb'd it or whatever, VRBO'd it for a week and cooked much meth in it. So
damn.
I think the Airbnb is like renting a car, right? Where I think people, they're renting the car. They're not, I don't know if it's true people abuse rental cars.
It would make sense. They commit crimes in a rental car, or I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. So I don't think it
is what you're saying.
I don't know. Yeah, I think it's more wear and tear. I don't know. But financially, I think you can do better. I think you have to just know that market, right? A lot of people think they can go Airbnb it, and then it doesn't.
And they cut down on how many you can have now, and
you have to have licenses, and I don't know. But I mean, you everybody says, oh, you can make all this money. Maybe you can. Maybe you have a desirable place that will always be rented, and you can make $300 a night, and that would be great. You can, but I think like a lot of places, you might make $300 a night for a week of the month, and then it'd just be nice to have a tenant there that's watching the place and regular rent and
not managing the laundry, the cleaning.
I don't know, like the Airbnb thing. Ever since my neighbor, I will, because I was thinking about doing it with my house, because it would be, we have like traveling.
It's a huge house to Airbnb.
Yeah, but there's like traveling professors and stuff that come in for DU and
like for 6 months at a time.
Yeah,
long-term.
You do like a long term, or even like those house swaps where you at Christmas time, the family comes here and you go,
wife swap.
Yeah, but you don't necessarily swap your house for their house, but you can put your house in a pool. I don't remember the names of those, but you can do that, right? Where you can put your house into a pool for the month of December. And then there's other houses, right? So people will go on vacation and go stay in your house for a month. It's comparable to a VRBO, but you're kind of doing a swap instead. And
just so you're making money while you're not there.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have, I don't like residential rentals. They're hard. I'll do commercial stuff, but residential is a lot of maintenance. But I do think there's a lot more abuse on Airbnb type things. People are, you just have a lot of. It's like
I know the Airbnbs I've stayed in for bachelorette parties. We don't take great care of the Airbnb. We don't destroy it, but I'm just saying, there's shit that goes down when you're renting a property. Like people bring.
Did you throw you throw up? You had sex on the counters. Yeah, it's gross.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna end, but before we do, has there been any tax changes? Anything that we need to know about? Any updates? Because tax season is over for some, and is there any advice? Anything's changed? Nothing new, nothing crazy?
No. I mean, God, the tax rules I think are so great right now. I'm just praying they don't change. The only thing that I would tell you is, the interest rates, though they're just like a house, the interest rates have gone up across the board. So if you do owe taxes, I haven't looked at the rate. It changes every 15 days, but you're paying 7 or 8% to the IRS, right? It's get those obligations paid off. Mm-hmm. Those should come long before the Hermes bag or whatever the name of that is.
The hermit bag.
the hermit bag.
The hermit bag.
Yeah, so it's our soul's bag. Yeah. So penalties and interest, they compound daily. It's like having credit card out there. So, just like everything else, the IRS was very cheap rates for a long time, and people have long payment plans and all. Get that shit taken care of. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just helped a gal, and actually, you guys might know her. She was a few years behind in her taxes and just didn't want to deal with it. And we got her all caught up and everything paid off. And boy, does it feel good. She hated to part with that money. It was like $25,000. No, not her. I think you guys might know her. But she owed $25,000.
But I was in that situation.
Yeah, she was. Angel was totally. But that was back. Even being in that situation at 3% interest was different than being in that situation at 8% interest. Oof. So, but I just know, get that off your back and get that paid. It's like a credit card where you can't ever get ahead of it now. Mm-hmm. If you're making your $100 payment on your $5,000 tax bill, you are never gonna get ahead of it.
So to wrap it up, we're gonna pay our tax debts. We're gonna contribute $100 a month to a savings. We're gonna max out our IRA.
The guys pay on the first day.
Guys pay on the first day for sure, and we're gonna
put money in your Swedish fish box.
we're gonna buy some properties.
I'm gonna go find that box.
Yeah, I know we're on the hunt.
Anyway, thanks for joining us. It's always a pleasure, and we have exciting news coming up soon that we'll be sharing in the near future. But until then,
what's the news?
Is it two of you?
no.
Oh,
Yes.
I know. Shush. I'm trying. Oh, fuck my God. Luscious LLC. All right. You guys, see you next Wednesday. Bye.